Okay, as promised, here's my second video today. Another video request, and it is from Caro Karshan. I hope I said that right. Some of these names are kind of difficult to articulate. So this one is regarding INTJs and trouble expressing themselves. So the viewer made a comment that regarding the feeling of being overwhelmed by thoughts and ideas and can't find a clear way to express them. So this one I totally relate to. Thanks for sending this one in. It is so true. And I am in my 40s and I still have a tough time with this. It is something that is very difficult for us who have a web of imagination and ideas and thoughts, and usually we're all internal in our heads. So trying to articulate what we've been chewing on for a long time and putting out in some meaningful fashion that actually makes sense to someone who's never thought about it or heard about it or anything like that. One of my biggest fears for that I still work on is when people are asking, so what is, for myself, I'm an entrepreneur, as I've mentioned, what is your product? And trying to put together a soundbite on that one, because again, for us, we've been thinking about it forever. Usually it is very robust. It has many different facets, and to sit there and quantify it down in one or two sentences so that anyone can understand is very difficult. So one thing I have to just plug is, if any of you are thinking about doing something to do with communications or doing something with anything to do with on the business side, and you have to write business collateral or speak in a business space, I highly recommend some sort of technical writing course. They're boring, they are horrible. But one of my favorite profs was one that actually, he gave me a D right off the bat because he's like, this is too verbose. It doesn't, what's your point? And I had to get 3 pages down to 1 paragraph. And I was devastated about it because I thought, oh, I thought I was always a great, fairly good writer. I could just, express my opinion, but conciseness is difficult for myself as an INTJ because you're thinking about multiple different pieces that go into the argument. You're already arguing against yourself in these statements. So again, technical writing totally sucks, but it is wonderful because it's a skill you're going to use for the rest of your life. That being said, I will talk to 2 sides of this. So this, I'm going to say from, say, an emotional standpoint, and I'm also going to say from a business standpoint. Again, I'm looking at my notes just so I make sure that I remember what I was wanting to mention. So I'm going to start with the business standpoint. And when I was starting off with my own startup, I met with a business consultant, and the first thing he asked is, well, what is the product? What do you bring to the table? And I find for myself as an INTJ, that's a tough question to answer because it's something that you inherently don't like. Not bragging about yourself, but it's talking yourself up. You know your own value to a certain extent, but it's difficult to sit there and plug yourself. Something you have to, I have to really work on. But anyways, I'm sitting there and talking to this seasoned fellow who's been in the field for, say, 40 years, and he's done consulting for multiple people and companies on these types of topics, and I could not get to my point. I was going from one side to the other, and this is only a couple of years ago. This is not a thing that it's always a work in progress. But I had noticed, and I'm looking at him in the face, and you could tell there's that mix of, can you get to the point? And also, which we hate as well, so we feel even more pressure to get to the point, but we don't want to miss any facets of what we're trying to pitch. and instead it becomes a jumble. So the best thing is in my previous video, I spoke to communications, and when you learn communications, it's more of a linear approach in the way that you convey things. It's question, answer, or timeline, the cause, effect, that type of thing. It is very linear. INTJs can struggle with this because we're all over the place. We're looking at ideas all the time. Some things are concrete, some things are still in the works, some things are still being tossed around in our head. And to bring us back down and speak in the business world can be very tough. So anyways, I took that back because what I found is that instead of he was great because he began peppering me with questions and really being direct and drilling at me, and that's a good thing to be an INTJ because you can handle potentially a lot more of that directness. It was tough on the ego to listen to his direct questions, but I had not allowed him to fully understand the concept. So he needed that in a short period of time so he can actually advise me, which is what I had asked for. So it is the frustrating thing, and I want to say that, oh, there's a magic pill for it, but it's more understanding the technical side of speaking and being knowing your own statement inside out before you present it to other people, so you know what key details you want to have. One thing I've noted as a thing that has helped me is becoming more of a point person. So I am a big fan of bullet points. So instead of having a big run-off statement on all the details regarding what my company can provide, I find the big 4 or 5 things and expand on it, move to the next point. That way I can bring in all my information. The web is kind of comprised, but compressed, sorry. But it's not linear. So you don't need the linear. You can show the scope without having to do the typical, ABC type thing. So the other one I'm going to say is the emotional side. And I find this one way more difficult because it's playing off of not one of my strengths, which is trying to express myself when I'm already emotional. And I've had videos somewhat on this topic previously, but this type of thing did not... There's a blessing and a curse, I guess, on that. So the blessing is that I take the information away and I chew on it, and then I'm able to understand my next steps. The negative, and then also I don't have the potential emotional back and forth that can sometimes happen and cause things to escalate and not be productive. The negative is that it takes me so long that the other person is wondering, what's going on, or it causes more inference in the unsaid than the said. So I had to actually learn to take that time and verbalize that I have to take this back with me to go and sit with for a while, and then we can have a conversation. So my example for this one is my current husband. When we were dating, we had a misunderstanding, and I did exactly that. I just took some time to understand. And when I say time, it's more like, say, a day or something like that. Because we weren't very serious at the time, but at the same time I respected him, so I wanted to understand if this was a misunderstanding or if this was a character issue that would not gel with my own ideals for a relationship. So we ended up meeting up at a scheduled time. I sat down, we had a talk, and what was nice is that because I tried to express myself in logical terms, it took the heat away from the conversation, and we were able to have a difficult conversation without the yelling. And I think there was an appreciation there on his side. Well, he's mentioned it before, that instead of having someone who is using emotional based, they're able to use logic based. So the point of why I'm bringing this one up is because the difficulty in expressing yourself is, I totally appreciate that, and I'm there. But again, going back to, let's look at what our strengths are. So instead of trying or acting in a way that is not authentic to yourself, being true to yourself is actually a way of expressing yourself by allowing yourself to use your tools, your skills, and your strengths, and using those pieces to communicate the way you need to. And it will come to a time that you will be able to communicate maybe more freely, but yeah, I agree, there's usually a big stall there when trying to speak out about what I'm wanting to express. So anyways, I hope that provides some context and some maybe some relation for your own experiences. Again, always look forward to comments and video requests. Just make sure, put video request in front of the request just so I can make sure that I see it and flag it. So thanks so much for watching.